Imagine the person you share a bed with looks you dead in the eyes and delivers a blow you'll never recover from. Not with fists, with words that cut deeper than any knife. She stared at me and said, "My ex knew how to satisfy me." In that moment, everything inside me shattered. You think you know someone, until a single sentence burns your entire world to the ground. What do you do when the love of your life turns into a stranger holding a dagger? How do you survive betrayal from the one you trusted most? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now, let's get started. I never would have guessed that a seemingly insignificant disagreement would serve as the catalyst for the collapse of my marriage. We were in the living room, exchanging words over something trivial, but as had become our pattern, the argument rapidly spiraled into something far more significant. Lately, every conversation seemed to morph into a battleground, and that night followed the same worn-out script. I could see the irritation in her eyes, the tension in the way she held herself. Rather than addressing what was truly bothering her, she blindsided me with a remark that sliced through the moment like a knife. Her gaze was unwavering as she delivered the words that would etch themselves into my memory forever. My ex always knew how to satisfy me. For a second, I didn't react. My mind needed time to process the weight of what she had just said. She didn't falter. There was no hesitation, no attempt to retract her words. She simply met my stare, as if daring me to respond. It had come out of nowhere. We weren't even remotely discussing anything related to intimacy. And yet, she had chosen to say it, fully aware of the wound it would leave behind. A thick silence settled between us. I waited, hoping for some kind of retraction, an apology, anything to suggest she regretted what she had just unleashed. But there was nothing. She stood there, arms crossed, an air of smug satisfaction about her, as if she had just secured some kind of cruel victory. And in that instant, understanding hit me like a freight train. This was no accident. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was intentional. She wanted me to hear it, to feel the sting of it. She wanted to diminish me, to make me doubt myself. I could have shouted. I could have demanded an explanation. I could have thrown every bit of hurt and anger back at her. But I did none of that. Instead, I leaned into the couch and let out a low chuckle, not because I found any humor in the situation, but because of the sheer absurdity of it all. She raised an eyebrow. "What's so funny?" I shook my head. "Nothing. I just finally understand." That was the moment I knew there was no coming back from this. Up until then, I had convinced myself that we were just going through a rough patch, that with effort, we could find our way back. But people who still care don't say things designed to cut their partner down. They don't aim to humiliate the person they once promised to cherish. She rolled her eyes and scoffed. "Oh, don't be so dramatic." I didn't argue. It was pointless. I stood up and walked toward the bedroom, not in surrender, but because there was nothing left to say. Behind me, I heard her let out a derisive laugh, probably expecting me to turn around, to challenge her, to fight for something that was already irreparably broken. But I didn't. Instead, I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, playing back the last few months in my mind. The endless fights, the widening gap between us, the way she treated me more like an inconvenient presence than a partner. And now, this. Her words weren't just an insult. They were a statement, a declaration that whatever respect she once had for me had eroded completely. And without respect, what remained? We didn't speak for the rest of the night. She stayed in the living room, likely scrolling through her phone, acting as if nothing had happened. I lay in bed, coming to terms with the fact that whatever love I had left for her had just been dealt a fatal blow, one I wasn't sure it could recover from. By morning, I no longer held on to the illusion that she might apologize, and sure enough, She didn't. She moved around the kitchen like any other day, sipping her coffee, eyes glued to her phone. I sat at the table, my cup untouched in front of me. I wanted to ask, did she even grasp the impact of what she had done? Did it matter to her at all? But I already knew the answer. She was fully aware. And the fact that she could carry on so effortlessly only confirmed what I had suspected. Something inside me shifted that day. I stopped trying. Once, I would have been the one to break the silence, to reach for a solution, to fight for what we had. But I had no fight left in me. The desire to fix something that had long since fallen apart had vanished. She noticed. At first, she acted indifferent. If I didn't initiate conversation, she didn't either. If I stopped making small efforts to please her, she pretended not to care. But her actions betrayed her. She wasn't used to this version of me. Meals turned into silent routines. Evenings that were once shared became hours spent in separate spaces, strangers occupying the same home. We barely spoke unless necessary. She stopped asking where I was going. I stopped offering any information. The truth was, our relationship had ended long before either of us had the courage to admit it. One evening, she came home later than usual. In the past, I would have asked where she had been. This time, I said nothing. She walked past me, waiting for the usual interrogation, anticipating some kind of reaction. When I gave her nothing, she let out a short, bitter laugh and shook her head. "Wow, you really don't care anymore, do you?" I glanced up at her and shrugged. I suppose not. That was the moment she realized she had crossed a boundary. From then on, she kept testing, stirring up minor conflicts, trying to elicit a reaction from me. But I had checked out. I no longer felt the need to prove myself to her. If she didn't value me, I wasn't going to waste my breath convincing her otherwise. A few days later, she mentioned divorce for the first time. It wasn't a threat, not an ultimatum meant to push me into begging her to stay. No, it felt like an experiment. She wanted to see if I would crumble under the weight of it. I didn't. I simply nodded. All right. For the first time, I saw something unfamiliar in her eyes. Hesitation. She hadn't expected my indifference. She was prepared for a fight, an argument, some desperate plea. But there was nothing left to say. That was the moment she understood it was over. There was no drawn-out discussion, no raised voices, no dramatic proclamations about where we had gone wrong. Just a quiet, mutual recognition that we were done. A week later, she started packing. I wondered if she would hesitate, if she would reconsider, but she didn't. She moved with certainty, as though this was the moment she had been anticipating. She drifted from room to room, collecting her clothes, her shoes, her personal belongings, without a trace of sadness. If anything, she seemed relieved. "Are you staying here or moving out?" she asked casually, as she folded a sweater into her suitcase. "I'm staying," I replied. She nodded, as if that was exactly what she had expected. Since I had owned the house before our marriage, there wasn't much to discuss. No tearful farewells, no lingering glances. She zipped up her bags, walked to the door, and left without looking back. And just like that, it was over. I stood in the silence, waiting to feel something. Anger, sadness, regret. But all I felt was relief. For the first time in years, I didn't have to walk on eggshells around her moods. No more veiled insults, no more cold stares, no more feeling like I was always falling short. The divorce itself was simple. We had no children, and our finances were mostly separate. She didn't demand much, and I didn't offer more. A few legal formalities, some court appearances, and it was done. She wasted no time moving on. Within a month, word reached me about her new life. Friends mentioned she was going out more, dating again, relishing her newfound freedom. I wasn't surprised. She had always acted as if marriage had been holding her back, as if she had been missing out on something better. Maybe she believed she had finally found it. Her social media was filled with smiling photos, bars, parties, new faces, always appearing to be having the time of her life. I didn't care. I wasn't asking around, wasn't keeping track. But gossip has a way of finding you. People love to stir the pot, hoping for some kind of reaction. "She looks happy," someone commented. I just shrugged. Good for her. And I meant it. This was what she wanted. She got exactly what she asked for. I wasn't going to waste my time dwelling on someone who had walked away so easily. Instead, I focused on myself, my work, my hobbies, my peace. At first, the emptiness of the house felt unfamiliar, but soon it became something else. Freedom. The stress lifted, the tension, the constant conflict, the feeling of never being enough. All of it vanished the moment she did. While she was out chasing whatever she thought she had been missing, I had already moved forward. At first, everything seemed to be going as she had imagined. She was out every night, surrounded by people, filling her feed with pictures of her thrilling new life. On the surface, it looked like she had won some grand prize. But life isn't a highlight reel. Then, the stories started changing. The excitement of being single again didn't last as long as she had hoped. The late nights, the attention, the thrill of doing whatever she pleased. It was fun for a while. But reality set in. The men she met weren't like me. They weren't patient. They weren't committed. They weren't looking for anything real. Some disappeared after a few dates. Others lost interest quickly when they realized she wasn't as young as the rest of the dating scene. And the ones who stuck around? They weren't treating her the way she thought she deserved. For years, she had convinced herself that I was the problem, that she could do better, that she had settled. But now, her perspective was shifting. One of our mutual friends, someone who had remained neutral through it all, mentioned her complaints. She says dating isn't what it used to be. I just nodded. I wasn't surprised. She says men don't treat women the way they used to. That made me chuckle. The truth was, she had taken me for granted. She assumed the effort I had put into our relationship was the bare minimum, that she could easily find someone else who would do the same. But now, she was learning the hard way that most men wouldn't tolerate her entitlement, her attitude, or her lack of respect. And gradually, the updates stopped. The endless party photos, the late nights, the boastful posts, they all started disappearing. She wasn't sharing as much anymore. She had stopped talking about how exhilarating it was to be free, because it no longer felt that way. The initial thrill had worn off, leaving behind a hollowness she never expected. Now, she was alone. And the worst part? No one seemed to notice. The friends who once cheered her on had drifted away. The men who used to shower her with attention had already moved on, their focus now on younger, more carefree women. She had assumed the world would embrace her return, arms wide open. Instead, she was met with indifference. The realization crept in slowly, an unexpected message popping up, a casual, "Hey, how have you been?" out of nowhere. I saw it. I ignored it. There was nothing left to say. A few days later, another message followed, even more offhand than before. "Just thought about you today. Hope you're doing well." I wasn't clueless. I knew exactly what this was. She had spent months chasing an illusion, convinced she was stepping into something better. Now, faced with the truth, she was looking for something stable, something familiar. She was looking for me. But I didn't respond. Then came the small hints. Comments on my posts, a casual, looking good under a picture from my travels, a fire emoji on a gym selfie. Subtle, but the intent was clear. She wanted me to notice her. I didn't. So she pushed further. "Do you ever think about us?" That one actually made me chuckle. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. She had spent so much time treating me like I was holding her back, like I was nothing more than an obstacle. And now? Now she wanted to see if the door was still open. I left her on red. Then came the real attempt. One night, as I sat at home, my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? Silence. Like she hadn't expected me to answer. Then, in a voice softer than I remembered, she whispered, I miss you. I leaned back, my eyes fixed on the ceiling. No, you don't, I said. She let out a nervous laugh. I do. I've been thinking about everything we went through. I know we had our issues, but I cut her off. But you thought you could do better. Silence. Then a sigh. I don't know. I just feel like we gave up too fast. I nearly laughed again. Too fast? She had been the one who threw the first punch, the one who decided I wasn't enough, the one who walked away without hesitation. And now she wanted to rewrite history, pretend it had been some mutual misstep. You didn't give up, I said. You left. More silence. Then finally she spoke. I don't want to fight. I just wanted to talk. I nodded, though she couldn't see it. Well, we talked. And with that, I ended the call. That was the last time I answered. But she didn't stop immediately. A week later, another message appeared. This one wasn't casual. It was long. She poured out how much she missed our conversations, how she regretted the way things ended. She admitted she had spent a lot of time reflecting, realizing she had let go too soon. She never directly asked for another chance, but the meaning was clear. She was waiting for me to say something, to give her even a sliver of hope. I didn't. I ignored it just like I had before. Days passed, turning into weeks, and the messages slowed. The last one I ever received was simple. I just wish things were different. But they weren't. She had made her choices. She convinced herself that leaving was the right decision, that she was stepping into something better. Instead, she walked straight into reality. The endless attention vanished. The men who once chased after her had moved on to someone else. No one was willing to put up with her attitude, her entitlement, her expectations. The dating scene she thought would be an endless playground turned out to be nothing like she imagined. And now? Now she was alone. Once, she held all the power, made all the decisions, controlled the endings. But now, she had nothing. Meanwhile, I moved on. I didn't waste time looking back, waiting for her to return, hoping she'd realize what she had lost. I wasn't interested in second chances because I was no longer the person she had walked away from. I had changed. I built a life where I didn't need validation from someone who never saw my worth in the first place. And while she sat there, trapped in the consequences of her own choices, waiting for someone to rescue her from the loneliness she created, I was already too far ahead to care. This story has come to an end. You know, the real lesson in this story isn't about betrayal. It's about knowing your worth. Never hold on to someone who doesn't value you. Love is about respect, support, and kindness. If the person next to you tries to break you down, humiliate you, or prove their power at your expense, that's not love. That's destruction. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away, protect your dignity, and start over. Don't be afraid to let go of someone who already let go of you. Because beyond that closed door is your true freedom and a real chance at happiness. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you